so good morning, everybody. So you're all down in Surrey, okay? I'm up here in Dumfries and Galloway at Gretna, specifically Gretna Green. They are two actually different places. Gretna is the town, Gretna Green is the farm estate. Gretna is a relatively modern town. It's only just over 100 years old, and it grew up because of the ammunitions industry that was set up along the Solway coast for the First and Second World Wars. But anyway, we're here at Gretna Green, and Gretna Green, this is the original famous blacksmith shop. And what I'm going to do now, you've seen enough of my face, I'm going to turn my camera around so that you can see the entrance door. When we have weddings, this is where people come in. This is the door. This is what was the blacksmith's living quarters. Okay, and people come in, and this is where they are received before their wedding. Okay, you can see from here just how close to the border we are. This is the border here. Okay, and Gretna Green, we're over here at Blacksmith. It's just about 3/4 of a mile from the border to the blacksmith shop at Gretna Green. And it all began in 1754. And that's the year 1754, not 6 minutes to 6. Okay, and that came about because of the Marriage Act. The Marriage Act in England and Wales only. It didn't apply to Scotland. Now, if anybody is having problems seeing the pictures, let me know and I'll sort of try to show you even more. Okay, so yeah, 1754, the Marriage Act in England and Wales, introduced by a chap called Lord Hardwicke, ironically an Englishman. And what that Marriage Act said was that you had to be over the age of 21 to get married unless you had your parents' permission. Imagine that, 1754, and 21 was almost middle-aged, okay? The other thing that the Marriage Act said was that you had to it became compulsory, you had to get married in a place of worship, in a church. And of course, that was nothing at all to do with religion. It was all to do with the money, okay? Keeping the money in the wealthy families, okay? It was to stop the daughter of the Lord of the Manor running away with the scallywag from the village, like my wife did. Okay, so in Scotland, however, we said, oh no, we're not going to have any of that nonsense. We are going to have or continue with marriage by declaration. And marriage by declaration was quite simple. All you had to do was declare your intent to be partners for life before a third person. And that third person literally could be anybody. But usually it would be a lawyer, a local dignitary, or importantly, a tradesman. So when the regulations started to bite south of the border and the star-crossed 14, 15, 16-year-olds started to say, oh, hang on, we want to get married, but mum and dad have said no. What should we do? They ran away to Scotland. Okay, to come through. Because I say in Scotland, we had marriage by declaration. And as they came over the border, the first tradesman they would encounter was here in the original blacksmith shop. And they met the blacksmith. And in 1754, that was a chap called Joseph Paisley. And they would come in through the door over there. That is the original doorway. And ask the blacksmith to declare them married. So the blacksmith, the first question he would ask, of course, was, where's the money? Yeah? And they would pay him a small sum of money, usually perhaps a guinea. And of course, we all remember what guineas are, don't we? That was the equivalent of £1 and a shilling in the old days. Today, £1 and 5 pence. And we don't use guineas today for anything other than the buying and selling of racehorses. And that's done virtually, but it's still, the value of a horse is still summed up in guineas. Okay, so this is the blacksmith shop. And here is the marriage anvil that we use today. Everybody see that okay? And the bride and groom would stand at this side of the anvil, and the blacksmith would then just perform a simple ceremony. He would declare them married, and to secure the marriage, all that he would do is strike the anvil with the hammer. Okay, and it was the ring on the anvil that became the ring on the finger. Okay, and of course, with it being a blacksmith shop, that is why we have horseshoes at weddings for luck. Of course, that's what the blacksmith would be doing here, amongst other things, making horseshoes. And so that transferred into a symbol of luck for marriages. And we have a number of examples of horseshoes. Yeah. And they were hung above the doorway, given to the bride, and each lucky iron horseshoe carries magic inside. Okay, and these are some of the horseshoes. Now, there is some arguments as to whether they be hung upside down or the right way up, whichever is which. Because some say if they're hung the way these are, then the luck comes out, and if they're hung the other way, it catches all the luck. But different people have different ideas about that. Of course, the other thing that a blacksmith will be doing was making irons for clogs and that sort of thing. This is Hugh Mackey, and it was Hugh Mackey that bought the Gretna estate in the 19th century to revive the tradition of marriages at the blacksmith shop. And we'll come on to him a little more later when we look at the family wall. This is what is known as the forge. And the forge is a replica of the original blacksmith shop. We only use the forge, well, we do use the forge for marriages if we need to, but normally all that we would use this for is if we had film companies or soap operas that want to have a scene or a runaway marriage to Gretna Green. This is where we allow them to do that. We don't let them use the original blacksmith shop. But I say this is all original, all of this building work dates, the blacksmith shop itself dates back to 1713. Okay, and we will be going shortly into the coach house, as the coach house is now the Gretna Green experience. And here are some models of coaches that would have been used back in the 16th, 17th and 18th centuries. So we have bellows for keeping the fire going, more anvils, and various bits and pieces that you would always find in a blacksmith shop. Okay, so if we move on from here, we're now coming into what was the coach house. And here is, we still have a coach in the coach house. You will hear behind me some films that are playing, so just some short clips. So hopefully that won't distract too much from what I'm able to provide you in terms of information. Okay. Did everybody see that okay?
Yes, yes, thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Behind our faces, we cannot be seen. My father awakes to see the dawn. The roost now discovered in the breaking door. The feast leads out of the gate, catches up before it's too late. You can't control. Alas, exhausted, falls around us. Maybe still see my father's feet. As he arrives to give us a piece of his mind, we manage to escape, leaving him behind. So, on the Carlisle Road, we make haste. No time to wait when we reach us. Over the border, Gretna Green seems clear. We're nearly there. Our marriage again. Into the blacksmith shop we rush. Beside the anvil, the forge now pass. And with the strike of the hammer, we'll wed. A life together lies ahead. From Gretna Green we hasten, full of glee, to live ever afterwards, happily.
And it really was as simple as that, the striking of the anvil by the blacksmith. And this is the original blacksmith priest, Joseph Paisley. And so he was larger than life character, prone to drink, or 10. Now, how did he become the grand old man of Gretna Green? You can, when you visit, listen to his personal story. There were others, because it became quite a business. Marriages at Gretna Green.
My father awakes to see.
And they would advertise, would you believe, in London papers to say, if you're under 21 and you wish to be married and your parents say no, come to Gretna Green. And they would line up at the station to meet people, young couples coming off the train, or they would wait at the border for couples running across. And there were rivals as to who would take on the marriage ceremony, because it became quite a thriving business. And although we now have certificates these days, back in 1754, there weren't any. There were no birth certificates, no marriage certificates, or anything like that. So what were the rules and regulations in Scotland of marriage by declaration? Well, basically, there weren't any. It said that you had to be of an appropriate age. But what was an appropriate age? Without a birth certificate, nobody knew. So the rule of thumb was that if you looked old enough, you were old enough. But you also had to be free to marry, that you weren't already married. Okay, because you may have some 18 or 19-year-olds who had gone through a marriage ceremony once and then decided, oh, I think I'll have a change. Let's marry somebody else. So you had to be free to marry. And so you didn't need parents' permission. All you needed was the will to be married to your partner. But then people say, well, wasn't there something about having to live for so long in Scotland before you can get married? That actually came in 1856, where they said that one of the two people to be married had to be resident in Scotland for 21 days, for 3 weeks. But like everything else, did that work? Well, to a degree it did, but sometimes it didn't, because the blacksmith would say, have you lived here for 3 weeks? And I would say, oh yes. Yeah, there was no way of proving it. So that was then soon forgotten about. This is a new part of Gretna Green. This is only opened this year. And this is what we call the elopement room. Yeah, people don't want to use the original blacksmith shop. We've created this bright and airy anvil room, so we call it the elopement room, with the Gretna Green tartan, some old photographs, and of course, the anvil. There has to be an anvil every time. And of course, we also undertake here, as well as weddings, a thing called hand fasting. And hand fasting is a sacred ceremony of commitment and the eternal joining of two people in love. Because hand fasting is older than marriage. It is what predated marriage. what predated hand fasting literally was just a man picking up a woman, throwing him over his shoulder and taking her home. Rather a crude thing, but that was accepted as how it was going to be. But then hand fasting came in, and we do hand fasting ceremonies using a ribbon. And of course, then the ribbon is tied into a knot. So that's where you get the phrase tying the knot is from the hand fasting. There's some tying the knot. Game of Thrones used it. Braveheart, William Wallace and Murren MacLennan had a secret hand fasting ceremony at night. And of course, tying the knot, in Scotland, we always say that it's lucky if it is raining when you're tying the knot. And when we tell people who come for that ceremony that, they go, why? And the answer is quite simple, that when the knot gets wet, the knot gets tighter. The tighter the knot, the more difficult it is to unpick. As simple as that. As I said, Joseph Paisley was the first anvil priest. And in this room here, we have the very anvil that Joseph Paisley was using. So this anvil dates back to 1754. It's probably older, but it is the original anvil. Yeah. Slightly smaller than anvils today, because at times Joseph Paisley, when doing his ordinary blacksmith's work, would take his anvil away into the field or whatever and work on ironwork away from the smith shop itself. Okay, so there will be a film that they will play in here shortly again, which we might come back to in a few minutes. Okay, but as I said to you before, Hugh Mackey, we showed you the photograph of Hugh Mackey. Okay, and it's a family business. It is still a family business today. Okay, that's Hugh Mackey. He bought the estate in 1885. And it is his descendants today. It's the Houston family, the name changed by marriage. And it's the Houston family that still own the Gretna Green estate and own the whole blacksmith marriage business. And it was Alistair Houston, this gentleman here, who sadly passed away 3 years ago in June, who built on what is the modern image of Gretna Green. Everything that you see here was Alistair's work. And it's carried on by his wife, Lucy, and his 2 children will inherit it when they are ready to do so. So this is a wedding dress from Dorothy Bell. She was married to George Mackay, son of Hugh Mackay, on the 17th of October, 1928. And this is the very wedding dress that she wore. Okay. Of course, we are still very diverse here at Gretna Green. That's Craig, one of our pipers that you can see in the film there, piping. He pipes at weddings, pipes the bride and groom in and pipes them out again. But we believe in diversity here. And as such, we have an anvil designed by Erin Calhoun, which can be used for people for same-sex marriages if they wish. It became legal in 2014. But here at Gretna Green, if the law says it's a legal marriage, we will undertake it. Simple as that. We have lots of stories of individuals. Yeah. And all of these are told around the walls. Dieter and Gisela Deal from Germany, Siobhan and Kat McKinley, Sean and Donna Graham. All of these are true stories of people coming to Gretna Green to get married. Because you see this one, Rick and Maureen Sperrink, they got married at the registry office because there was a time when the marriage were unable to be performed at Gretna Green because of the change in the law. In 1939, there was another Marriage Act which superseded previous acts. And what that said was, and it was all because of the Second World War, that you could get married in a registry office. And it actually reunified Scotland with England and Wales. And it virtually outlawed runaway marriages to Scotland because they didn't need to be. But it wasn't until the 1970s that a lady turned up at Gretna Green and she said, I want to get married here because my great-great-grandmother was married here. And everybody said, oh, no, you can't do that. Just knock something down and just pick it up again. You can't get married here at Gretna Green because it's against the law. But one of the registrars said, oh, well, hang on, let me just think about that. Because in Scotland, we're different again to England and Wales in that it is the celebrant that is licensed to conduct a marriage. It is not the venue itself that is licensed, okay, as it is in England and Wales. And this particular registrar said, oh, if I deem somewhere to be suitable for you to be married, as it's me that's licensed to marry you, I'll do it. And of course, then what happened in 1977, the Marriage Act Scotland was introduced, which allowed marriages to be undertaken in an appropriate setting. And that, of course, now is also the case in England and Wales. But again, it was Gretna Green that led the way to change the rules, as it were. So there we go. Against the odds, marriages at Gretna Green took off and soared during the tumultuous first 4 decades of the 20th century. Of course, in Gretna Green, it isn't only the blacksmith shop that is used for weddings. We have the Gretna Hall, which is just a couple of 100 yards away from here. And that was the original farmhouse. Then it became a mansion house, and it became a coaching inn. And of course, it is today a hotel. And at the Gretna Hall, we have 3 marriage venues: the cottage, the courtyard, and the coach house. And they are used where you have weddings which are slightly more guests, or more guests than we can accommodate in the blacksmith shop. In the blacksmith shop, we can comfortably accommodate up to perhaps 30 or 35 people, whereas at Gretna Hall, in the coach house, they can take up to 80, and in the courtyard, perhaps even more than that.
The secret notes are using my family seem to be asleep. Into the dark night, take away the hands.
So Gretna Green, it is the marriage-centered marriage capital of the world, we like to think. If you realize that in the United Kingdom, the second most busy registry office is Kensington and Chelsea in London. And that registry office conducts between 16 and 1800 marriages every year. The registry office here at Gretna, which is in Gretna town, registers between 4,000 and 5,000 weddings every single year. That's how popular it is. People come from not just the UK, but from all over the world, particularly from America, Australia, New Zealand, mainly the English-speaking countries where perhaps people have emigrated or were perhaps the first emigrants during the Irish famine and the Scottish Highland clearances. Okay. As I said to you earlier, when the Marriage Act came into force in 1754, they were only legally binding if conducted by a minister in a church. That is no longer the case. So we're virtually at the end of the tour now. We'll just quickly head back over some of the things, and I'll pause briefly at each so that people can either take a look or read what is written. Alistair Houston, the Mackeys. I'd say it's still a family-owned business, which is quite remarkable in this day and age. But we hope it continues that way because there's a closeness about it. Okay, so we're just about coming to the end now. Like I say, I'm just going back over a few of the places that we've already visited so that people can get another look. And again, it reflects all of the things that I've spoken about tying the knot, about the various people that ran away to Scotland or made their way to Gretna Green to be married.
Hello.
I'd say that was the original coach house, one of the original coaches. So we've just about completed the tour. We've seen everything that we can. The only one thing we haven't had so far is one of our photographers, Raymond, who is waiting to greet an actual wedding that will be coming in for 11 o'clock.
Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, I'd say Raymond's one of our regular photographers here, and he won't mind me saying he's one of the best.
Oh, thank you very much. Even have a camera to go with it. Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. That's about it. I'm now available for anybody that might have any questions, and I'll be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you so much, Peter. That was really, really interesting to hear all about the history. Does anybody have any questions? Suzanne?
Yes, I was very interested in tartan. Is your tartan a special tartan for Gretna Green, and is it based on the Black Watch?
No, it isn't. The Gretna Green tartan was the one that you saw in the elopement room. This actually is not a clan tartan, but this reflects my personal history. My family on my father's side all came from the Isle of Man. And the tartan that I am wearing now is actually a Manx tartan.
You must understand that the Isle of Man is now called the Isle of Wisdom.
Yeah.
To commemorate the fact that Norman Wisdom lived there, and also that we live in the Wise Islands. That is to say, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, and England. So it's most appropriate that it's now called the Isle of Wisdom.
Yeah, but anyway, all my family dating back to 1651 and the first written records at Kirkmichael.
Oh, yes. Which part of the island were you based in, please?
I wasn't. My ancestors were.
Your
great-great-grandfather. And it was Kirkmichael.
Kirkmichael. That's most interesting you give us that information, which you probably wouldn't have done anyway. Yeah. Kirkmichael, thank you.
Okay.
Where does that name come? Of course, originally the Isle of Man was dominated by the Vikings of Norway, wasn't it?
It was, but as a lot of the west coast of Scotland was also, and England, northern England.
Indeed.
Okay.
So, yes.
If I head back through this way, I said the Black Watch tartan is a military tartan, and it was the only tartan allowed once after the Jacobite rebellions of 1745, Culloden and Bonnie Prince Charlie and all of that. And once Scotland became part of the United Kingdom and Scottish men were joining the British Army, the Black Watch was the tartan that was they were allowed to wear, because tartan for a while was prescribed, or Scottish national dress. It wasn't actually tartan at the time. I say that didn't come until much later, but Scottish national dress, the kilt, was prescribed, and nobody was allowed to wear it. And of course, they weren't allowed to carry weapons, bar for one small knife for personal protection, which is called the ski and do. And they always wore the ski and do in the sock. So it was available to either the right hand, or if you're left-handed, they wore it on the other side. But that was the only weapon people were allowed to carry after the Jacobite rebellion. Okay.
And did they comply with this rule?
Sorry?
Did they comply completely with this regulation?
Oh, does anybody ever comply completely with regulations? They weren't
Fair
allowed
enough.
to distill whiskey, but did they comply with the regulations? Of course,
Is it so?
they didn't.
Oh.
And they used to, the farmers would carry their illicit spirits around the countryside in barrels, described as
In
sheep
barrels?
dip.
Hmm.
And when the
That's
customs
secret
men
whiskey,
said, "What's in
portable,
the
isn't it?
barrel?" they would say, "Sheep dip. Would you like to try some?" And of course, they'd usually say no. Yeah. So as we leave the coach house again, this is a wall where people can leave messages, their own personal love story. Yeah. And that's here on the wall, and people can write out a message and leave it, and we keep them all. Because we feel that our history here at Gretna Green is very important. And we're now in the gift shop, and just to show about the whiskey that I said, sheep dip, we still sell it, sheep dip. we still sell whiskey of various sorts. These are lowland whiskies. These are highland whiskies. These are whiskies from the island of Islay on the west coast.
Oh, yes.
We've got Allen Ledaig from the Isle of Mull and Highland Park from Orkney. Then you got the Speyside whiskies. They're probably the most famous. Speyside is well known for its plethora of whiskey distilleries. There are 143 whiskey distilleries in total in Scotland, and the vast majority of them, something like 70 something, are in Speyside. And then you have a very special little area, Campbelltown, where 140 years ago there was something like 35 different distilleries. Now there are only 3. The Springbank, the Glen Scotia, and that's actually Glengyle, but they call the whiskey Kilkerran after one of the distilleries that closed down. It's all about the whiskey regions. Each region, as you can see, the islands, Speyside, Lowlands, Islay, and Campbelltown. And of course, every whiskey is completely different. 143 different ones. And when people say, "Oh, I don't like whiskey," my answer is always, "You haven't tried the right one yet." Okay, are there any more questions, either about Gretna Green or whiskey?
Claire, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Peter. That was so interesting, really interesting. Thank you. Can I
You're
just
welcome.
go back a little bit? You said that the Act changed, that you had to be 21 to get married.
Yes.
What is the case now? Do you still have to be that age?
No, you don't. It changed in 1926, I think it was, when it was reduced to 18. Sorry, to 16 in throughout the UK. It's still 16 in Scotland, but only recently, just the back end of last year, it was raised to 18 in England. Now, but what they did do was stop any runaways by specifically saying you can't go somewhere else if you're under 18, because it would not be recognised. And so if you had tried to get married in Scotland under 18, you would be, and you weren't resident in Scotland, you would be refused.
How long do you have to be resident for? Is that the
Oh,
21 days again?
Oh, no. You have to register with the registry office, and you have to give at least 28 days notice. So I think the registry office are very, very good at charting back where people have been residents, and they will refuse anybody under the age of 18. Not that they get any or many requests, but if they did get a request, they could head back over a person's lifetime to find out where they've been mainly resident. I think you actually have to be born and raised in Scotland now to get away with being 16. But as I said, the number of 16-year-olds getting married these days, very, very few and far between.
Can I also ask you, sorry, I just noticed you walked up a few steps to.
Yep.
Is the place completely wheelchair free friendly?
It is indeed. I'll just wander back round. I'll show you that we do actually have a wheelchair lift. It is here. Okay.
Oh.
So completely accessible, and we're dog friendly. Yeah. So if you can even bring your little doggy if you've got one.
Thank you very much.
And this is the wall where people say, "Oh, can I have my photograph taken with you?" Okay, and of course, this is where we sell the shortbread as well. Gretna green shortbread. Okay, has anybody else got a question?
Nikki?
Yeah, and Pete, that's actually linked to Claire's question about the age of people so you do 4,000 marriages a year. Is it all different ages then?
Oh, yes. From
Yeah.
Here at the blacksmith shop, the trend usually is people who are having a second or perhaps even a third marriage. And they think it's romantic to come here to Gretna Green. But we get all sorts, literally from 21, 22-year-olds, which tends to be the lowest age that we get on a regular basis, early 20s. Right the way we've had people in their 80s and 90s who'll come to get married. It's the whole spectrum. Yeah, and like I say, I'm from all over the world. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank
Gretna Green is Gretna Green twinned with any other country or town in the world?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Fair enough.
I would
There's
say,
only one
but
Gretna
we
Green,
did.
then I take it.
Yeah, we did teach Las Vegas everything it knows. Okay.
Do you have a record of how many people have got married at Gretna Green?
Oh yes. I mean, as well as the registry office, they keep their own official records, but we have records going right the way back to when records were first kept. And even today, we still record in our register every single marriage that takes place here.
Sure thing.
Wow. Must be a lot of records.
Well, some of the earlier ones we're trying to microfiche because there are that many. They're all stored, but we'll never get rid of them. It is a remarkable thing. We are the world's greatest love story, as it says here.
Peter.
I want to say.
Hello.
Say Graham had a
Graham?
Sorry,
Yep.
just a quick question. Do you ever allow film crews or television programs to be filmed there?
Yes, we do. I showed you earlier the forge, which is a replica of the blacksmith shop, and that is where we allow film companies or soap operas or whoever to film in there. We don't let them use the original blacksmith shop. We let them use the replica forge.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you. And we do get them. We do get them. We thought we were going to get one from Coronation Street just last year, but that never materialized.
Oh, pardon me. Is it necessary that the person officiating the wedding is of one denomination, or can all denominations perform the ceremony there?
Whatever people want. You say the vast majority of marriages are conducted by a registrar, but we have two ministers who are here regularly, Keith and Sandy. Keith is from the other side of the border, from a place called Haltwhistle in Northern England. He is authorised by the Bishop of Newcastle to conduct weddings here. And we have Sandy from Dumfries, who is authorised by the Bishop of Dumfries and Galloway.
That's fair
If
enough.
people want a Catholic wedding, then that can be arranged as well.
Sikh weddings or Jewish weddings?
Yes, we do. We have
Do you
just
indeed?
about everything, but we usually
Good.
find those are conducted by the registrar.
I see. Oh, yes, as well. Thank you.
Suzanne, do you have a question?
What if your oldest whiskey?
What is what? Sorry.
What is your oldest whiskey?
Oh, oldest whiskey. Ooh, let's have a look.
Good question.
All gets struck very quickly.
Yeah.
And how
We've
much
got
does it cost?
Oh gosh, £450.
For how much?
£525. What size is that bottle? How much is that?
There's a lot of those are the Macallan whiskey, which is quite an expensive one. The average bottle of whiskey should cost you probably no more than about £35 for a single malt. The better the malt and the older the malt, then the more expensive it becomes.
How strong is it? How strong is it?
How long is what?
How strong?
Oh, how
How-
strong is it?
Yeah.
Oh, how strong? The average, yeah, it varies. The normal whiskey strength is 40% alcohol by volume. However, a lot of distilleries have a thing that's known as cask strength. So it is whatever it is when it comes out of the barrel. And that can be anything up to 67 or 70% ABV. Okay, we have some in our collection, which is around 50%, particularly the Ailsa Bay whiskey. That's 48.9% alcohol by volume. So, but mostly it's 40 or 43. Galwinia is 43. Because it goes through a process known as chill filtering. And the chill filtering reduces the alcohol content to a standard 40 or 43%. Okay.
Yeah.
Suzanne, do you have a question?
Thank you. Do you still do fake marriages, simulated marriages, where it looks like a marriage but it isn't?
Yeah, but that's the hand fasting. Yeah, because hand fasting is not a legal union anymore.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, like somebody goes through a marriage, but it
Yeah.
isn't a real marriage.
Oh no, we don't. No, we don't get a lot of that. What we do is a reenactment.
That's
of-
it. That's what the
Yeah,
word I'm
we
trying to think of.
We do reenactments, particularly for tourist groups, and they come from all over the world: France, Germany, the USA, Australia, and I act as the blacksmith, and in fact, I'm like the blacksmith from 1754, and we choose two people from the group to act as the bride and groom, and two people to be the mother of the bride and father of the bride. And we just have a little bit of fun and reenact a 1754 marriage.
Thank
Okay.
Yes.
Claire has asked in the chat, do you do many virtual tours because you're very good?
No, would you believe this is the very first one I've done as a virtual? I do tours, but this is the very first virtual tour that I've done. And if you think it's very good, I feel extremely pleased. I'm very grateful for that compliment. Thank you.
A natural. Does anybody else have any questions?
I just want to say what an amazing tour it's been. I just want to say what an amazing tour it's been. Thank you very much.
Yes,
You're
thank
more
you.
than welcome. I just hope I've been able to give you the flavour of what Gretna Green is all about, and to say that If you want to come up and see us in person, I'd be more than happy to greet you here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.